This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for products, and fowlibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists, as well as our guest lecturer members Vite Ramen and Darren Noblock. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force the Will to your favorite ever live Force the Will vodcast. It's Office Hours featuring myself, DMO73, reminding you that MST negates. And I'm joined as always by Paul Reisman.
You know that MST negates?
It does. Cheers to that. And Mike Rance.
Did you know that
Thank you. Appreciate that. We are back.
Yeah,
that works. That tracks. We are home from FoW Fest. It has been an amazing weekend. We couldn't have done it without our incredible sponsors and saw so many of you there. We'll get to that in a little bit in terms of talking about the experience and kind of the plans for the future. But do just want to give some, kind of preliminary business. If you like what we're doing, want to consider supporting the channel, easiest way to do that, click the subscribe button if you're not. Otherwise, you can also consider supporting us financially by clicking the join button down below, joining the channel as a member to get access to the cool emotes that are being spammed in the chat right now. And you can also do things like visit our sponsors, fowlibrary.com, Cardo Doko, as well as Odyssey Games, who currently has pre-orders up right now for Judgment of the Rogue Planet. And then you can also pick up singles from ccgprime.com. There is one other couple big sponsors that we do want to shout out for from FoW Fest. We couldn't have done it without being Inked Gaming, who made all of the custom playmats for this year, as well as donated some mats, and Replicant, I think it's Replicant, deck boxes in Replicant deck boxes in France, who made these incredible Priscia deck boxes that were made just for us. They're going to sell gray versions on their store in a limited quantity, but these are serialized green ones exclusively that were made for FoW Fest. These are honestly, legitimately, this is probably the coolest and most amazing deck box I've ever owned. Like, this is very, very cool. First off, the front is this cool paneling. I'm supposed to talk about this because I want to give them a shout out. You could find information in the link in the description, but I would go on about this deck box even if they didn't give it to me. Secondly, it's a beautiful, very nice sliding solid opening. It fits an ABC deck perfectly, as you can see there. It's got a nice little dice tray, which is really sick. And then, quite honestly, I think the coolest feature of it, which I would never think to include in a deck box, it has a spot for silica gel so that it controls the moisture levels inside the deck box so that your cards stay in good quality. Like, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Right? Right? It has a spot, an aerated spot separate from your cards to keep a pack of silica gel so that your cards don't have to worry about moisture and they keep themselves really nice and contained. I love this deck box so much. My ABC deck is never leaving this box unless I'm playing ABC. So sick and so grateful for them for what they were able to provide for our Top Cut players, as well as the cosplay contest winners, which we had like way more people enter than I thought we would, which was awesome.
were there no pictures
prize
of...
wall. I have some. We'll post them.
Okay.
We'll post them. But we had
Yeah,
a Feetsing and Zero. We had a My
cool.
List, Rogue Spectator, Book of Dark, Gil, Roamer of the Crimson Moon. It was sick.
Shout
There
out
was a lot of
Alejandro.
cosplay. Yeah, it was for sure. Roamer of the Crimson Moon made it. It was just so cool.
Side note, Replicant, if you're watching this, your boy would love a Valentina box if you guys ever consider it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. They are very, very nice.
Olivia box, Shayla box,
Shayla box, mermaids.
mermaids.
Mermaids are good. Mermaids are good.
How about the Fox
But we'll
box?
get more into but a Fox box. I already have the Priscia box. Anyway,
Fox box. Oh, that's it.
so we do have some spoilers to get into.
Hey, check this out,
let's
guys. Check out how much meat we got. We just did our first shop at Costco. We got so much ground beef.
Thanks for that information.
I got
Yeah.
you. I know it's very important
Really
information.
School TCG, brought to you now by Costco. Get
Not
your meat
actually
there.
though.
Not a sponsor. Hashtag not a sponsor.
Hashtag
MST.
not an ad.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm drinking out of my MST negates mug. Get on my level. Anywho, so let's talk about some spoilers. We're not gonna talk about the. I think I actually do probably should pull up the image, but I don't think I actually have it downloaded. We've already seen the text of the Order Alice, the like virtuous Alice. She seems kind of insane for an already insane accelerated Alice fairy deck. There's not really other things that I would think to add there, other than the fact that her inheritance ability can pay for fairy lightning, which is on screen because it's technically a fairy. Because why isn't a chant a fairy? There you go. So that's kind of cool. But fairy lightning, 2 costs, virtuous skill, which means it chains, which is very neat. Gains quick cast and unchaseable as long as you control a light legacy J ruler, so a reincarnated or an ordered Alice. Rest up to 2 target resonators. They lose all abilities until end of turn. Sorry, resonators or additions. They lose all abilities until end of turn. If you control a light J ruler with a card named Dominatus stacked below it, destroy the chosen targets. So you'll tap them, remove all of their abilities, destroy them. Thoughts about this card? I have a few.
Give it to us.
I think I'm kind of glad it can't target J rulers, but I do think it's actually a pretty significant drawback that it can't. And I get the unchaseable part for sure. But if something naturally has barrier, this card can't do anything to it because you can't target it. So I think we haven't seen the blue one yet. We'll talk about the green one, or we'll talk about the wind one. But when we compare this to the black one, to Rhea's, I think this is kind of mid. The unchaseable for sure is very, very good. But
I just feel like you
outside of
jump through a lot of hoops to make it actually function the way that you want it to function.
to get the most value out of it, right? It does feel
exactly.
like it feels like the base level of it without being even quick cast unchaseable, the base level of it isn't very good unless you also have Dominatus stacked under it. But then I like get a priority window to try to mess with you attaching your Dominatus and things like that. It's a little bit weird. I think it's good. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a very, very good card. I just think it doesn't. There's part of me that feels like it should have had like a doesn't recover. Like tap them down, they don't recover, as opposed to tap them down, they lose all of their abilities. If that makes sense. I think that would feel more.
Or even having the they don't recover instead of the destroy. Sometimes I feel like don't recover and leaving something on board with no abilities is sometimes better off than actually destroying whatever it is.
Yeah. I feel like you could even maybe have made it that they lose all of the abilities, and then if you have Dominatus, they don't recover at the next end at the next recovery phase.
Because I do envision this card being like very good in like an aggressive fairy deck. Like it makes me
it's just like 2 Charlotte's Light transformation magics at once. But it's the same cost potentially, so it's like I can also just use 1 Charlotte's transformation magic and do the same thing. I don't know. It's not bad, but compared to some of the other ones, a little lackluster.
It feels like a very weak payoff for the amount of hoops you have to jump
she's
through.
she's also just killing you as soon as she swings, most likely.
Yeah,
but
of course. If I stacked a bunch of things on top of my J ruler and it didn't kill my opponent, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I want to swing with the tower.
That's fair. That's fair. And next we have, just to finish out the light cards, we did get Tina's Wings. All of the rulers have this suite. All of the colors have this suite of token generator, which is 1 base color for void, solarization for make a bunch of tokens. It's 5/4/4s with flying. For fire, I'll pull it up right here. It's 5/3s with belligerence, so they can attack. And then when they die, you draw a card, discard a card. Darkness is 5 ethereals that have that banish your opponent to loses 200 life. We haven't seen Waters yet. And Winds is, I'll pull it up here on screen. Nope, that's Gil. Winds is just, they count as wind magic stones. So, I mean, there you go.
Windstone's better.
Yeah, I think probably the Darkness one so far is the best because it's just like guaranteed 1,000 life loss if it resolves.
And if left unanswered, then it's 3,000 life loss.
Yeah, for sure.
Oops.
They're neat. They feel kind of like I might play like 1 or 2 of them, like like across the board, across all the token generators. Like I might play 1 or 2. It is very neat Asmodeus support though. I have heard people talking about that, of like using it as like Asmodeus removing a bunch of cards, then making a bunch of tokens, which is kind of neat because Asmodeus does like tokens. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, don't hate that.
Yeah. The next suite of stuff is we have the Liberations. So we'll talk about that. The Liberations are pretty much all the same across all the colors. They have ridiculously tiny text, but thankfully all of them do the exact same thing, which is helpful. We all are spot removal that's unchaseable and kill your own something and your opponent's something. And as long as you destroyed a J ruler with them, either your own or your opponent's, if you have solarization, the orb, the solarization that matches the color, you can replace it with a ruler, a fire ruler with judgment, and a fire ruler with partner. Or if you have brand, if you have like Electra or brand, the shooting stars essentially, you can then go get the matching attribute 7-star and have it be their partner. So Hyde gets Tina, Reinhardt gets Stein. T2 will get, or Falchion will get Niklaus, that kind of thing. And then they can be used, removed from the game to help pay for judgment, which I think is probably the best attribute of that card, just to like make you feel good about, trying to pull in those rulers with judgment. Untraceable spot removal is pretty cool. I like it. Get rid of the barrier supremacy that we currently kind of have some elements of.
Yeah, the idea that you can just pull in different rulers from your sideboard. Like, we already have somebody in our locals chatting with us about how he wants to pull in Allosaurus and one of his favorite contract rulers. Just torching the timeline Allosaurus, and I'm just like, that is kind of a cool idea. I really do like it.
So I do have, there is one question for me about how these work. Because it says apply the following effect, but the effect is 2 bullet points. So it's not choose one, it's apply the following effect, but the bullet point is 2 points. So my question here is, could I get a ruler with judgment? Electra's not a ruler with partner, so it wouldn't work in the case of Electra. But if I I'll say for like the darkness ones, right? If I get like Rhea plus Reinhardt, do I then also go get Stein? Because I apply the first effect, which is get Rhea Reinhardt, and then I would go to apply the second effect, which is, well, I have Reinhardt, so now I can get Stein. That's a question I have with these cards for the Q&A.
Yeah.
Or if it just like checks as you're resolving and goes, okay, based on your current game state, go get one of these things. I don't really think it changes the dynamic very much. Like, because then it's like, well, I went from a deck playing 1 ruler to a deck playing 3. I don't really know what that means, because my deck would have had to be built ridiculously complicated to make that work, as opposed to going from 1 to 2. So I'm not really sure, but that's a question I have about these Liberations. The artwork is gross.
Yeah, the
in
artwork
the
is
sense that it's
amazing.
very sad.
Like we're going to kill you. Is that cool?
Every single one of them, just dead.
It does make me wonder then if the design team is like, well, we want you to put like deathly skills and blazing skills and stuff like that into your deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of like the other stuff, which means I'm not grabbing Branhart because all of his blazing skills have to work together, or else they don't do anything. Um, Stein has some independent death skills that are pretty decent, but they're kind of bricks if I draw them early. Um, that feels kind of bad. So, like, there are some skills where that's probably fine, but there are other skills where I'm like, I don't know if I would want to do that. So maybe you can apply those, but you don't have to, which I hope is the case.
How many cards do we have featuring a sad stab to the chest? Well, the liberations are 5, and then we have Welser getting killed. That's 6. And then we have Oberazuki getting stabbed, and that's 7. So I think we have 7 cards that are a sad stab to the chest. Now, that's a lot. That's a lot more than I expected. I feel enough. Yeah, for sure. I think the idea of I think the liberation cards are going to be pretty important for Solara Station decks. And I think there's a world where you're like, oh, well, if you're the Solara Station. Sorry, let me rephrase this. I think there's a very, very easy way for you to play these cards to set up for the extension rule stuff so that your Solara Station just doesn't matter. And I say that in the sense of like you actively build your stone base to be actual stones on purpose to set up for the free things, like the free Solara gear stuff that like if you have no resonator or they don't really have to produce will to play for them. And then you're purposely tapping your stones to mill your deck out really fast to be able to judgment into a liberation, into pressure. Now my magic stones are live. That feels like how those decks are going to be built. Like, even though you're Solara Station, you're purposely building with actual magic stones because all they're going to be trying to do is turbo out your judgment, right? And then pay for this card because this card can be free if you put back enough cards, if you put back 2 matching cards. So
Yeah, it
I don't know.
seems
That's
like
how I feel like it.
it definitely seems like there's 2 different ways to start building this Solaris rulers, right? Like you definitely can just focus on doing their bread and butter plays with solarization cheating and stuff. Like that's absolutely something you could do and just like splice in other things as necessary. And then just use the Solaris stones, right? Or you can go that direction where you're using regular stones. You judgment your Solaris ruler, remove like 2 cards per stone that you tap, and then just kill it, and you have all this stuff in the wings.
Exactly.
Just yeah,
Right. Because it feels like you could get to 5 cards, I think, very, very quickly with just like 1 or 2 stones and the like other stuff that they have that like cycles through their own deck. And then you just like judgment, tap the stones to remove more, go in. Which I think could be also a very fun way to build them.
Which is probably how you build that fun Alisaurus deck that my friend from Locals is trying to build. Right? Just like put in a bunch of Jeff.
These boxes from Replicant are amazing. We already talked about it, but it's so incredible. Thank you. We're sorry that you couldn't make it to FoW Fest, friend, but thank you so much for helping us to get connected with them to make these boxes. Truly amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Bonjour.
Yeah, I think you just play like blasting waves or even your first sea stones, and then you just tap them to get like get your stuff removed from game, and then you just have mana. Right?
Yep. Okay. So those are the liberations. We can show the artwork of the other ones real quick. When liberation is kind of the saddest because Killua looks maybe a little bit too excited to be stabbing Maya in the chest. She's like almost like ooh shiny, which is a little off-putting. But there you go. And then I do
Well,
want to talk.
it makes me wonder if they're not killing them as much as they're like freeing them from under the control of Solaria, right?
Yeah.
Hence the liberation in the name.
It does feel to me like in the lore wise, it's like the shooting stars met the coded versions of of the 7 stars. And then when they came into the world, they met the real 7 stars who had been like corrupted by the Solaris. And now it's like, well, I knew the virtual you, so I know there's some good in you, so I'm gonna free you because I have that connection.
Yeah,
which I think
pull
is
you
cool.
out of the Matrix, right?
Yeah,
magically
sure.
pull you out of the magic matrix.
Yeah. So the compression doesn't help here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I blame it on the fact that they had this like big background. Yeah, like she looks like she's smiling in this artwork.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So let's talk about Gil's liberation. So he gets to cast Energy Wind. He can pay it. His God's Art is 5th element for free, which just means you're playing an incredibly heavy elementals deck. Let's go Leaf Paladin. Let's go. Pay 0, produce any color. Spend this will only to play elementals or spirit magics. Play this ability only during your turn and only if you have Gil the Gifted Conjurer out. I mean, I don't hate that. The idea of like there is a world where you could very easily get Gil out. It's not bad. Energy Wind is a spirit magic, so we could make it free. It has Solarization 1. It's unquit chaseable. This one I think is honestly kind of the worst of the ones we've seen so far. Up to 2 target non-magic zone entities gain at the beginning of the end phase recover. And then if you control a Wind J ruler named with a card named Tiger Plateado stacked there, J resonators you control gain +5/+5 and pierce until end of turn. I mean, I guess. I think it's very clearly meant to like let Gil swing, hit hard, and then recover so that it's protected because it also has barrier. But I don't know. I think this is kind of mid. Thoughts, Paul or Mike?
Yeah, it's it could stand to be better, which I think is okay. I mean, we want bad green cards, right?
Yeah, for sure.
In our hearts,
like,
we all want bad green cards.
It is a cool way to support Gil because Gil's kind of always been like, I mean, Charlie DeMel, right? We played Ultra Awakening in Gil was the idea of I'm going to play control and then Gil's going to punch you one time and then you're dead, right? Like that was kind of way you played the deck. And so Energy Wind is like a mini Ultra Awakening because it lets Gil swing in with a heavier hit. His base stats is 13/13, right? So it becomes an 18/18 with Pierce, right? So probably not dying due to combat. And then at the end of the turn gets to recover, so it's safe and protected behind its barrier again. So like it's like 4 mini Ultra Awakenings as opposed to 1 huge 6-cost Ultra Awakening, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it. It's just like, interesting. For sure.
Yeah, there's certainly a degree where it feels underwhelming, in combination with the reincarnated Gil, something that has barrier attached to it.
Yeah.
I think it's probably okay because you're putting the Chrono Gear beneath it too and getting those abilities. So there's definitely something to be said that it's
the liberated Gil is also a 16/16, so it'll actually be a 21/21 with Pierce. So like that's pretty good.
Yeah, certainly not bad.
Yeah,
right.
for sure. Next up, speaking of more liberations, let's talk about Nyarlathotep. So we got into a very, very hot debate at FoW Fest about this card, and I believe I believe that I won this debate every single time. Most of the time, people were like, "You know what, Jeremy? Yeah, you're right. Haha, I will take it." A new survey will be carried out to find out what the community thinks. That's awesome. I cannot wait to vote for Lilius Petal.
Sick.
Let's freaking go. Anyway.
Fox.
Fox.
Hashtag
So, Nyarlathotep,
Fox.
8 cost, 15/7, Pierce, Belligerence, no natural swiftness. Enter, search for any number of copies called Crimson Flare. God's Art, search your deck for a card named Heavenly Fruit and play it for free. Inheritance of 0. Until end of turn, if a J ruler named the Dusk Girl or Scarlet Crimson Beast you control would deal damage to a J/Resonator your opponent controls, it deals double that much instead, which also means that the pitch effect from Dusk Girl is 1,400 damage per card or 1,800 damage from a dinosaur. So there you go.
Is that
she's
right?
No, that's not what it says. It says it deals that much damage to that J/Resonator and its controller.
And its controller instead. Apologies.
Yeah.
It's not the double. It's doubled in the fact that it's going to a second place instead. There you go.
Yeah. If you want to drop Raging Messiah, you are more than welcome to do that.
I like the fact that it also does it for Dusk Girl on the front. I think that's very, very cool.
Yeah.
And then null, you pay 7 less to play this card. Now, it's 5 or 7. Thank you. So, this is the debate.
Are we going to talk about the fact that you literally cannot use the reincarnation ability?
You can, but it's difficult. And
Yes.
I'll talk about why I'm okay with it. First off, so, card as printed, it is impossible to reincarnate this card without a lot of work. You have to specifically know that it's on top of your deck, perform the judgment effect of Scarlet, of Dusk Girl, who can only be performing judgment if you have 0 cards in your hand, hold priority, draw a card, get this, then reincarnate. So, that's the way that works. I also think it's why she has like the simplest cost reduction, because it kind of makes sense, but we'll talk about why I think I win this debate in a minute. You also can just order her, but at that point in time, you ordered her for 8, or she's the only card in your hand, and you ordered her for 1, and that's probably fine. And the reason why I'm okay with it is because of this card, Crimson Flare, 2 cost, Blazing Skill, Cthulhu Legacy. Again, has the usual quick cast if you have a J Ruler Legacy. Up to 2 target J/Resonators your opponent controls cannot or block, attack or block until end of turn. If you control a Fire J Ruler with a card named Protuberance, this card deals X hundred damage to your opponent, where the X is the combined total cost of those targets. You want to know why I'm okay with it being difficult? Because the idea of introducing quick cast unchaseable burn damage to your opponent's face would be absolutely terrible for the game state. It's a bad... Sorry, let me add to that. Adding easy to access quick cast unchaseable burn would be bad for the game state. I just think it would be terrible. So the fact that it is very, very difficult to be able to get to that thing to make it unchaseable is just fine for me. Like I really, really am appreciative of the fact that it's very difficult, because you can get the burn damage part just by having a Fire Cthulhu J Ruler. You could even have it be frickin' Killua, because she's a Cthulhu, so she's a Fire Cthulhu that you can attach Protuberance to, right? You can do that with Inherit the Stars, so that's fine, but it wouldn't be unchaseable, and I could respond to it, which is great. So the only reason why is I just don't think the idea of an unchaseable thing that wins the game is a good idea to introduce into the environment. It's just not. So I'm glad for that. The other reason why I think I win this argument, that it's okay that she has this weirdness, is because we got into lore related reasons, right? Nyarlathotep, we had this joke of like, is that character in Nyarlathotep, or which characters in Force of Will are Nyarlathotep? The answer, yes, because there's been so many different Yarlies in different forms that it honestly kind of makes sense for the fact that I could play this card, have it be the last card in my hand because I've been pitching them to Dusk Girl, play this for 1, then perform Judgment, and have Nyarlathotep and Scarlet on the field at the same time because of the craziness that is Nyarlathotep's like split personality that she's been showing us from the very beginning of time in this game. So the idea that like instead of stacking on top of, she kind of really gets her most power by being 2 instead of 1 together is honestly pretty lore driven, very, very cool for Nyarly, and I think it's totally fine. Like, that's not something that the others can really do very easily, but Nyarlathotep very easily can. So.
Oh, and then you just bring in the Nyarlathotep, Bringer of War from MSW to get the 3rd split personality of like not dressed up like Little Red, and then you have even more of that, and you can.
And then you play Lunya, so then you have a 4th Nyarlathotep.
Yeah, and then you just sideboard into Fiend of Dark Pyre. I don't care.
Yeah, hell yeah, for sure. Well, ironically enough, Liberation of Fire can't grab Dusk Girl. So you have to use Liberation of Darkness to grab Dusk Girl because she's a darkness ruler and not a fire ruler. So there's also some silliness there.
It kind of works because you have Heavenly Fruit, which is a darkness card.
Darkness card.
Yeah, there's certainly some hoops you got to jump through to get this card onto the field, but there are definitely some funny ways to make that happen. I think a first boon. So you just remove this card from the game off of first boon, and then you have access to it anytime you want from the RFG. You also have a Heavenly Fruit that you can just run in the deck, and then she just cast her from graveyard for 1. So there's some funny stuff you can do with this card. Is it good? I have no idea how consistent that is until I have the cards in my hand, but this one is certainly a lot harder to put onto the board for sure.
So the big debate was people were like, well, then why even put the reincarnation text on her if it's so hard to get to the reincarnation? And I just went, theming. That's the answer. It's theming. You kind of have to. It would feel weird if the other 4 had reincarnation and she didn't. Sure, her reincarnation is practically impossible, but she at least has it, and it's still technically possible. It's just really, really hard to do. But she's designed in such a way that she actually kind of works better without the reincarnation, and she like does other things regardless of not being able to reincarnate. So I just think overall it's better.
Yeah, and like you said, it's probably fine. I mean, if you end up getting Nyarlathotep onto the field reincarnated and you play Crimson Flare and you win the game, you won the game.
And right? So for me, like even with you jumping through those hoops, you have 0 cards in your hand. So like I'll have a chance to respond to you searching, right? But if like you could reincarnate while still having a hand and you just happened to have one of those Crimson Girl things in your hand, then the game's over. And I go, that's unfortunate. Like, it's just, I like some more hurdles in the way of an unchaseable kill spell for the opponent than for overall game state health.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the answer is reasons. Yeah, there you go.
Let me look up Heavenly Fruit again, because I think there's actually some interesting text on this. You discard your hand
from graveyard.
You could play any Resonators from your graveyard this turn. If a card will be put into your graveyard from anywhere, or move it from the game instead.
Yeah, which then pays for solarizations.
Seems pretty okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it perfect? No, but again, we got a really strong red deck last set, so I think that's fine.
You say impossible to do it with her. I say improbable to do it with her because it technically is possible. It 100% is possible. It's just very difficult. You could play you could actually play a red-blue-black variant where you purposely do something to take the Nyarlathotep from your hand, put it on top of your deck, and then play the Atom Stone so you can sack it and draw a card. And then you just go pitch my hand, perform Judgment, sack the Atom Stone, draw the Nyarlathotep, reincarnate. Like, you can do it. It's just difficult. that
Yeah, I think you're definitely supposed to play this
as a
with the
partner to the J
understanding that you were
ruler.
playing Heavenly Fruit to discard your hand and get null, so you can play this for cheap.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go ahead and talk about Rhea real quick because we showed a video of her, but I'd like to also talk about her here, specifically her big spell. So she has the same thing. You can burn mystery counters to make her cheaper instead of reincarnating on her. She gets to search for Glint of Insight as her God's Art and play it for free. That's gross.
hmm
The idea of instant speed, an instant speed pass timing Glint of Insight in response to like my opponent searching. Like they searched, they showed me the card they searched. Cool, God's Art.
hmm
Just take it. Take the card they just searched for. Feels gross.
It's in my graveyard, and I have mystery counter to remove a mystery counter to use Glint of Insight again. There you go.
There you go. And then you can pay 0 to put a mystery counter on a J ruler you control, only if you have a Rhea and only in your turn. So other copies become more mystery counters. But then her spell, Darkness Blood, quick cast, unchaseable. Your opponent discards a card. If you control a Darkness J ruler with a card game life zapper stack below it, your opponent banishes 2 resonators. Instant speed, unchaseable, discard a card, banish 2 resonators. This is the strongest of them. By far. Yeah, this card is very good. Mike, how do you feel about instant speed, discard card, banish 2 resonators? Unchaseable, by the way.
Yeah, it's that's pretty funny, man. Not gonna lie. I just love the fact that like you could just be like, "Hey, man, you playing the game?" No, you're not.
Nah.
It's like,
I
I'm going to
remember
control
getting
your
glinted
hand
back in
and
the
your
day,
field. Sounds good.
I remember getting glinted back in the day, discarding 2 cards and being like, "Oh, that felt kind of bad." Now it'll be like, "Oh, I tried."
Hey. They do have to get I mean, like, they do have to get Rhea, get her judgments in and everything else, but still.
Yeah, but like
It's very good. It's a very good card.
really
Like, it's the
good.
best of these spells, for sure. For sure.
There is that
Yeah,
neat
it's
little
like
thing, that neat little core you get here, where if you have Glint of Insight and you've played it already and you've managed to get Remnant on it, remove it from the game, it can help pay for Darkness Blood by being solarized to the bottom of the deck.
Oh, yeah? Put it back into the
Um,
bottom of the deck at God's Art, get the exact same Glint of Insight and recast it.
that seems gross.
Ah.
Yeah. But of course, you're in the late game, so you should be doing that and winning anyway.
Yeah,
Like,
fair
that
enough.
is a win condition as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Let's talk about some blue cards. We saw the
Please.
blue water avatar. 13/13 flying, does everything as usual. Enter, return any number of target non-magic stone, non-J ruler entities to their owner's hands, so both sides of the field. That's a water card.
Hey, that's what it used to do. It's doing it again.
It's doing it again.
Doing it again.
I don't think that's boosted
And
from its old enter effect at all.
yours.
Actually, it is. It actually is.
Is it?
It actually is boosted because this is selective bounce. I think that
Oh, it
was
was
like
as
your
opposed to
your opponent
everything.
loses like 2 resonators back to their hand, right? It's definitely corrupt. Is it better? Probably not. But it does get around Eternal.
Hey, it's true. And then we have the real water card that we need to talk about, which is T2 and Falchion. Battle Lifeform Human, 9/9. The red ability is to take a card with total cost 1 and Fusion Metal Lifeform. It becomes an addition, and you add it to this card. And then pay 1 green, cancel target activator automatic ability that targets an entity you control. That's crazy. And then when it leaves the field, you get T2. Search your deck for a card with fusion and reveal it, put it in your hand and shuffle your deck, or produce blue and green, or get a will coin for blue and green. I mean, T2 loves this card. Like
100%.
this is a really, really strong boost for T2. I think it's also pretty neat for Falchion. Um, just like because it's another like protect the castle kind of will sync for him on a pretty decent body stat line because it can
Hmm.
protect targets and entity. So if they start going after your additions, you can like start protecting them. Um, that being said, a lot of people are just running like board wipes for all the additions because they don't want to deal with Eternal's barrier. So I'm not really sure how much that's going to be relevant here. But I do think this is really, really nice for T2.
Yeah, if the death metal errata is real, we talked about this before. Instead of grabbing Eternal, you just grab death metal. You don't get the boost off of the will production, but you do just play this card, and then you can't do anything to it because it has Eternal, and then it just negates everything.
Echo T2 doesn't like this card. What are you talking about? Oh,
We talked about that as
sorry.
well.
That's a good point. We did talk about this. So
Yeah.
for me, this is a good like secondary threat for T2. So one of the biggest problems with T2 is that it just kind of only has one threat. Um, Violet and Maribella can help dig stuff, or Violet can help dig stuff, but she takes a long time to dig stuff. And like contracts, like if you kill contract, it's dead. The idea of like being able to, oh, they killed my thing that I put all my life forms on, that I started to put my life forms on. Thank you for answering that. Here's another big thing that's going to start recycling those metal life forms that you already used. So it makes you be able to play, I think, a tighter metal life form package because you don't need to have to try to go find more after your first one has been answered, which I think that's the boost for T2, is that it
Yeah.
has like a follow up to getting answered. Because before it was like, you answered T2. Good game. Like you really didn't have much other go through. This feels like more of a backup card, which is why this very similarly to Vega and very similarly to Vega Electra, this feels like a T2 card that wants you to start as Falchion. So you build a T2 deck starting as Falchion with the intention of eventually flipping over into T2 as like we built it, now we're ready to go. Just like before, it was like Vega sets the table so Electra can finish the job. This feels like Falchion sets the table so T2 can finish the job. And this card helps make that happen.
Yeah. The longer I sit with it, though, I do think this overall is better in the long run for Falchion decks, right? Because I mean, if we
Probably.
think about Falchion, they're running the Brad package, so they're running Stone Monument, so they're able to just buy this card from their deck, and then it's a
If
two
library
drop
gets
9/9.
banned, this becomes much better for Falchion or than T2
Yeah,
than
I mean, like
Falchion.
it's
Yeah.
good regardless, right? I
Yeah.
mean, um, you're playing Stone Monument already, and then you just have this 9/9 on the field that can just negate everything that tries to target you. That seems pretty
Yeah.
good to me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, I mean that's just kind of where I'm at. Plus, you have you have things like Metal Lifeform Dragon that you can I think it
Pitch to
RFGs
grave.
with this activate ability.
It pitches to grave.
It pitches to grave, so you can just
It's a discard.
it's cute. Um, so you can just like main that now.
Yeah,
Just do like ridiculous things with it.
for sure.
Um, yeah,
It
there's
can
definitely
certainly help, and
combinations.
it can certainly help for like a control, like against a control deck, right? Where you're just like pitch dragon, burn you, pitch dragon, burn you, play T2, immediately attach some dragons to it and make it be scary. Because
Hmm.
dragon has multiple symbol skills. I think it has.
No, it doesn't have multiple. It just has
It just has
flying.
flying,
It has
right?
fusion and
So
flying, technically.
fusion and
So,
flying. So
I think I think you play probably rare metal and dragon, and you don't worry about the swiftness boy or the pierce boy or precision or
yeah,
any of that. You just focus on the best ones, and that's your package.
yeah.
Dragon does remove itself. Okay, that's what I thought.
Oh, I thought it was discard. Okay. Regardless, it's cool. I look forward to playing around with T2 with this card. It has me
Yeah.
excited about all of the War of the Sun rulers, except Reflect Refrain. I've already been excited about them because I've been playing them for like a month and a half.
We just talk about how even more cards with more races in blue is making me think of really degenerate things.
Great. Alice's World. Let's go.
Let's go.
So let's talk about FoW Fest. We got a little bit of time. FoW Fest was this weekend. It was 70 players. Paul's working on a TR report to talk about like the meta breakdown. But it was an insanely cool time. We had players from France come over. We had players from California come over. We had players from East Coast, South, Midwest, I think we had some people from like the Texas area. I know we had some people from kind of like upper Northwest as well. It was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it. I think players had a really good time. Side events fired constantly. We started with 85 ABC decks. We ended up going down to 4 at the end of the event. I walked away with 4 ABC decks and only about half of the prize wall left behind. So a nice start for next FoW Fest, which at this point in time, as a heads up, is probably going to be the first weekend of June 2025. So put it on your calendars for now. Hopefully we'll have the like finalized date very quickly, but we're definitely doing one again in 2025. We did something different this time than last time, which was we did the like back half of the day on Friday, and then we did Saturday, Sunday. While fun, and it was cool to be able to do the cosplay contest and everything else, I'm not sure we're going to do that again. I think we might just do Saturday, Sunday as opposed to last time. Not nearly as many people came on Friday as I thought were going to come. Don't get me wrong. It was still a good group of people, and we had a lot of fun, and it was great. But I do feel like a lot of people traveling to Kalamazoo like couldn't get in at a point in time to really take advantage of that without also coming in on Thursday. And I don't want people to feel like they're missing out on anything. So I think with how popular Saturday, and Sunday were, because we were literally there until 11 p.m. on Sunday. Like people were still playing games at 11 p.m. on Sunday. I think that's kind of my big takeaway, is that we're probably just going to do Saturday, Sunday. I'm curious to hear in the chat, for those of you who came, like, what are your thoughts? Like, no, you got to have Friday still, or no, it's okay. Saturday, Sunday is enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if I think about it, and I don't want to speak for the chat can agree or disagree with me, but I had imagined that if people arrived and they were in the room or not in the room, they'd still just hang out and play Forceful anyway. Plus, they get to explore Kalamazoo a little bit more if they arrived a little bit earlier. And then you're not missing anything until Saturday if you have to work late and you have a late Friday like flight or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I don't think we lose anything, and then we just still get to set up the room, right?
Yeah, we just have to do like morning setup, or we can like see if they're willing to let us get in like late on Friday night to set up for Sunday morning, like at the end of the day or something. For sure. Wish the room block had started Thursday. Yeah, for sure. You liked being able to play on Friday. Friday, I feel, should be an open room, but not side events, just grabbing cards and testing. But for people there earlier, the main reason we would have, like, and to be perfectly honest, the main reason we did side events on Friday is because we have a venue to pay for, and we did have to pay for renting the room on Friday. So,
there you go.
we do have to cover the cost. But Friday was fun as well. Okay, cool. I mean, we'll talk about it. I mean, ultimately, I have to also work with Aussie Games and see what they think overall, because we want FoW Fest to be self-sustaining. But curious to hear there. But overall, it was a ton of fun. I was really impressed with the ruler variety. We had 26 unique rulers in the event. Single rulers, double rulers, triple rulers, order rulers, tag rulers. Quick order rulers, all kinds of stuff.
Cuddle bust Odyssey Games.
Hey.
I'll bring my minivan. Let's go.
That's an option for Friday. And then we did have no one ruler was represented at more than 10. And I say that because I put like all of the different brand heart focused decks, even though it was spread across different partner rulers, those totaled up to 10. Um, and then the closest one of that was 9 at Killua, which I was very surprised it didn't top 8. None of the Killuas top 8'd. Top 8 was 2 Eins, 3 Falchion, a Ragnarok, a Lich, and a Niklaus Brandheart, which I was very happy with that spread. I think that was very, very cool. It was good information. It was cool data. It was cool data. It was cool to see everybody. Good matches. Thanks Babatunde and Paul for your commentary on Saturday, and for Babatunde for joining me on Sunday. Yeah, Paul, you were there. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences like?
It just felt like, how do I put this, right? So I'm the tryhard Johnny of the channel, right? I really like trying to master the game and getting good at the game without having to enter into the competitive environment. And FoW Fest was that neat little nexus where the competitive player can enjoy themselves and the casual player can enjoy themselves too. Um, and I really felt that throughout the whole main tournament, right? You could just bring Lich and get into top 8, apparently, if you played well enough, right? And we talked about that on stream a lot, where it's in Force of Will. It's not just your deck building, it's piloting the deck and understanding how the deck functions within the metagame. And if you can figure that out, I think you could probably play any ruler and maybe do as well as you can,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't necessarily prevent you from cracking into top 8. Right, 2
Yeah.
Liches showed up and 1 converted. That's insane. 1 Ragnarok showed up and won the event.
And won. Ragnarok
Right?
won the event, but not by being gimmicky, but by legitimately like playing tight, playing well. Like, go watch that finals, go watch that top 8, like, or go watch that top 4. Like, it was not. I talk about this all the time, right? You don't have to be gimmicky. You just have to play a deck that is like at its core, play tight, play good, solid core fundamentals. And Steven Holsheiser, even playing Ragnarok, did a fantastic job playing a deck to the fundamentals and was able to get there. And it was
Yeah.
very, very cool to see.
Yeah, he played through and
I'm sorry for you.
yeah, I mean, Reg is stupid. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Falchion was probably the safest deck going into the event. That and Killua probably. If you were like, I want to be the Killua player, it kind of made sense to me. But you could also just have fun, and you did. And the guy who brought his fun deck won.
No, I think Steven was trying to like spike some people with Rag. But
well, certainly that's the case, but I
he
was told
certainly could
specifically,
have
like,
picked something
this is the
different.
deck I play when I'm not trying that hard, right? When I'm not trying to win a GP, this is the deck that I play with for fun, right? And I'm just gonna play that really, really well.
Was ABC being played on side events? Yeah, it was the side event we fired the most was ABC pods. All weekend long. We played ABC pods. Remember your Brad triggers, right?
Yes, remember your red triggers.
Yeah, so I mean,
Well,
overall
Steven's
it was a really great time.
He can confirm that, right? Like, Steven, that's like the fun deck you play when you're not trying to go super hard, right?
Whole size, you're starting to sound like Min. Relax.
Just draw better.
Just draw better. So yeah, it was
Sorry,
a ton of fun. I had a lot of fun. It was a really cool experience. Can't wait to do it again. I'm very tired, but a good tired. I did get to talk to a lot of people about overall state of this was probably my favorite part, was like after the main event was kind of over and we saw the top cut and whatever. I got to really talk to a lot of people about their thoughts on the overall metagame right now. the overall state of like what high end competitive looks like, um, and what our thoughts are about um, uh, what can be done to further improve it. And by further improve it, I mean pretty much everybody I talked to had this sense of like competitive FoW right now overall is in a very, very good spot of like we said, it's not necessarily about this deck just beats everything. It's like you have a lot of options. You got to play tight. It kind of is a high skill ceiling, but high skill will breed reward kind of regardless of what deck that you're on. And they were enjoying that, but then there was a matter of, and we can make it better by doing these things. And so I'm going to propose some stuff that I kind of heard as kind of common themes when I was talking to people on Sunday. And I'll see what the chat thinks and kind of what you guys think here too. So Mike, you need to pay attention.
Oh, hi.
Summoning
These
Mike.
are some thoughts. These are kind of some of the things that I heard. The biggest themes that were not just people griping about a specific card, but like when they were actually going into depth about like what would the meta implications be of this, what should we do, and with the next set coming into mind. So the first one is this: a full ban on Ainz, or a combination of Ainz with Dragon of Solari along with Ainz with that new banish lose 200 life thing. The idea being that Ainz still keeping those two has an aggressive line in the opener that's just activate abilities, and like all aggro Ainz just puts too much damage on board without having to do anything other than activate abilities. And there's other things that it can do too. And the idea that I heard pretty consistently about the idea of not just combo banning or not combo banning, but full banning was kind of a 3 strikes you're out thing. Not necessarily specifically about Ainz, but a general mindset of like, if a card has 3 bans with it, just ban the card. Like 3 strikes and you're outed. That's okay. Just like as a general concept. Another one of these cards that I'm going to have also has that same kind of thing going on with it. But, you know, this is the idea. So what do you guys think about that one?
I mean, I'm under the impression of like 2 strikes you're out for most of these.
2 strikes you're out?
I'm also kind of the wrong person to talk about with like combination ban lists, because like I don't like the combination ban list personally.
Sure.
I think that Ainz is a perfect example of why it is not the ideal scenario to be in. I feel like Ainz has always been a problem, and I feel like there was just a lot of band-aid solutions around him. So I think that this kind of finally coming to a head is just like kind of 2 sets too late, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ainz has been rather kept in check with the things that they have done for him. Personally, having watched the gameplay and having watched everything else and played Ainz a bit and played into the matchups and everything else. But I think that with what is coming down the pike, that was before an entire set that had the gears at race attached to it was suddenly printed. And it was like, that's just going to breed problems for a ruler that can just reveal gears and get their abilities. And so I think like now is the perfect time of like, there really isn't enough that you can trim off of this man. It's probably just better and easier to just ban him.
Just trim him.
Just trim him, right, for sure. 3 strikes you're out for sure. It's just kind of and again, 3 strikes you're out, not because of Ainz or anything else, but just a general concept with the combination ban of like, if a card is needing that many combos, it's not worth it. Just full ban it. It's okay. And there's nothing like wrong with that. And so that kind of came up with Ainz.
Very importantly, if a ruler needs 2 cards combo banned with it, the ruler's the problem. That's just always going to be like the top-down perspective, in my opinion.
And I think with Ainz, that's very true. I think that's very true with Ainz. Paul, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, you probably could do some shuffling. I still don't know how I feel about Ainz and Garfi. It seems like Ainz in Great Dimension Library has been like the main selling point for like Ainz control piles.
Ainz plus Garfi, we did some testing before that ban list came out. I did some testing with some of the guys from overseas. It was truly disgusting.
then yeah, I think you just ban Ainz at this point. Plus, like in the story, like they kill Ainz, right?
Boy's dead. Boy dead.
Yeah, so just kill Ainz.
It's lore relevant to
Actually,
ban him.
Hell yeah. Lore bands.
more relevant to
Love lore
ban him.
bans.
Yes, kill him actually.
So second thought was a full ban that I heard from a couple of people was a full ban on Branhart's Flaming Thoughts. Previously, it's been a discussion about you hit the Cyclone card instead. But I honestly think that Cyclone is inherently way easier to deal with if you don't have Flaming Thoughts. And so I think this is one that because of another card that I'll talk about in a little bit, I'm not necessarily as important to pull the trigger now, but does have my concern because we just got more blazing skills to like make it so that card doesn't whiff ever. As someone who watched someone in the one turn play all 4 of them and just was like, I just saw 12 cards of my deck for free because he discarded some kind of blazing skill every single time. Branhart, with the speed that it is now, does gatekeep a little bit more of the creativity decks in a way that I think is not the best. It's something that can be addressed, I think. And I think the Cyclone is fine if it doesn't have that hyper acceleration from Flaming Thoughts. So I would let it keep the cool finish spell, but like take rid of the hyper consistency. So there you go.
Yeah, I think Graceful Charity in any game just needs to go away.
Yeah. Yeah, Graceful Charity probably goes. Next one's Phantasmal Ascendant. We've talked about this. Much in the same reasonings of Flaming Thoughts, the card has been allowing decks that should be answered. Here's what I wrote. Much like Flaming Thoughts, this card has been allowing decks that should be more answerable by more mid-range and control strategies to just push through anyway by hyper-accelerating will on the turn they want to go in. Most people think it should have been hit a while ago, but have understood that the company wanted to ban anything post-Worlds, but now we're entering the competitive season again. You can ban stuff, hit Phantasmal. I think that's a general consensus that I hear across the board. I don't really think that's crazy.
By the way, Phantasmal Ascendant is on the combination ban list 3 times already.
Also, was the same kind of concept of like it's 3 times is probably just too much. Axe the card, right? It's the same kind of thing. Even eroding Ainz to only reveal resonators doesn't solve the problem with what is about to be printed. It doesn't help. The fourth one was a ban on interdimensional library. This was something I heard from multiple sources. Common theme. Said the card in general has created a core value package that's seen across nearly every control deck and creates very uninteractable, frustrating boards for player to deal with. And with the upcoming solarization cards, it only gets worse because not only are they being removed, but then I can also use them to ramp. Every card I play becomes ramp, regardless of if it has solarization on it or not. And I just think as a mechanic, that's not something that inherently creates value when they've been talking about trying to kind of like adjust curve. This doesn't help adjust curve. So library probably can just eat it. This is something that I heard from across the things. And there's plenty of good control stuff that doesn't rely on library and is still value consistent and things like that. But we're starting to hit a package of very similar control, like library packages starting to show up in a lot of different control decks. So at that point in time, probably just time for it to get rid of it.
Yeah, every single Falchion deck and every single Ainz deck played library, and all like 5 of the 8 decks played that in the top 8.
Yeah.
It was insane.
And please keep in mind that this is data. This is data that I got from talking to a bunch of different people, and I respect their opinion on things, and I truly did feel like we were having conversations purely based on game health and not I'm annoyed by these cards. Like some of these people calling for these bans were people who I talked to about these bans for people who were playing these cards, and they were still saying like overall health of meta aside, this is important. And this was data that I presented to the company along with the top 8 lists and the ruler breakdown for FoW Fest. Like I gave this data to them to be able to use and make decisions on. And keep in mind also that all of this discussion was from a perspective of recognizing we can't just ban one deck, because if we ban one resource package, like if we only banned control things, then aggro floods the environment. Like you have to hit kind of a spread of things to kind of address all tempos so that they kind of come down equally, other than just like creating a pocket where it's only one type of deck allowed in the meta. So that's gone. He's on the run now. Control players crouching so hard on it. Yeah, for sure. Lastly, another one I think was a recommendation on a combination ban of Solaria's Wind and Sword of Progression, or just perhaps a ban on Sword of Progression in general if they don't want to deal with it. The main drawback of Sword is that it gets RFG'd if you don't control Magog, but with Solaria's Wind, that becomes a bonus because you can just continually recycle the same sword over and over again, especially if you have a Brad. It just becomes infinite swords off of just one sword. So, yeah. And like you said, Righteous Oxides, the future-proof issue can always unban cards eventually. Yeah, for sure. So that was the discussion I had a lot of people with. A lot of people were like, Solaria's Wind in general. And I went, no, Solaria's Wind and Sword. Like, that's the real problem. I get, infinite Garions, infinite Persephones. I understand. Sword is the actual problem of those like cards that you're mentioning, right? Because every time you cast Sword, it's just a +2 after the first one. So it's just like, I don't play Library in my control deck. Reflect Refrain. And then I mentioned two other points, which was a discussion on banning Light Moon Child, but players are not in agreement with this necessarily across the board, like unanimous. This event also showed that you absolutely can build your deck to play through a Light Moon Child. Like you don't have to have it. And like I've been playing Reflect Refrain and not really missing Light Moon Child. So I just kind of mentioned that like there's kind of two, not necessarily a consensus, but there is an active discussion about Light Moon Child. I presented that data to the company. And then the last one was that there is a discussion about... We get it, Jeremy. You play... Yeah, I play RR. Freaking love it. I
think if there's an argument to ban Light Moon Child, it rests solely on the idea of players reach for that Moon Child more than any other Moon Child. The second Moon Child that we saw at FoW Fest was far and away, it was like not close second place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I said that, I said, this was my point. It's not necessarily something that everyone agrees on, parentheses. I'm also not really sure where I stand on it, as it's quite possible to play through the God's Art, but I also 100% see players' frustrations. So, like, I just wanted the company to know that there is a discussion around Light Moon Child that they should be aware of, that the community's having.
Yeah.
I think that's important information for them to know, right?
That
You're right,
said,
just because you can't
kind
play
of
through
walks the line as a card design. It really does walk that line.
Yeah, for sure. There's also a discussion about wanting to ban something in Killua's kit, but players are not in agreement of what that should be. The first thing that everyone does appear to be agreeing on with Killua is Phantasmal Ascendant, which I mentioned, but those are the broad reasons I put before. I've also heard people talk about gas, or combo banning her with Killua enters the game, or Killua Fossil Girl, or with no bite, no fight, just so she doesn't have as much like free incidental like Pot of Greeds, or doesn't have as much of an ability to rush things down quite so fast. But I did talk about that like Killua is a deck that people are talking about of like maybe you need to address, and I presented that from the perspective of if we hit Falchion, if we hit Branhart, if we hit this, you also have to hit something for Killua or she just takes over, right? Like you have to think like, what are the implications of when this gets knocked down? What's the domino chain? So I mentioned that. And then that was the feedback that I gave to the company of what I've been hearing and what I had from most of the conversations. So
yeah,
they're not going to ban Killua. They're not going to ban Killua because there's literally a card in the new set that can just give you Killua. I'd rather just ban stuff from her kit because I think it's actually her kit that is overtuned. So and I say that from the perspective of because they haven't tried to hit anything in Killua's kit yet, I'd rather them try to hit something from Killua's kit, because I think that would be enough.
Yeah, probably the 1-mana draw 2 is the bigger concern. The ability to just see more cards is always
Yeah,
really
I mean, if you hit
good.
if you hit Phantasmal Ascendant and you hit No Bite No Fight, that's probably enough to like keep Killua in check, I think. Or combo ban her with Killua. Fossil Girl enters the city, which would be really weird to combo ban her with a card that she's literally on, but she's also on No Bite No Fight. So,
Oh,
yeah,
but
I get it,
case,
Echo.
we'll just,
I understand. You don't.
In that case, we'll just you're right.
So, yeah, that's those are my thoughts. Those are what I kind of had takeaways from the data. Like I said, I presented this data to the company. From what I have heard from a majority of people that I talked to at FoW Fest, along with the top 8 deck results and deck lists. So hopefully they use that for better. I think they will. I think they've shown that they are paying attention to these events. I literally received a message from my connection before I had things ready to go to send to them saying, hey, how did today go? What are the results like? Like, they were actively asking me for information and pictures and top 8 results and everything else. So they knew the event was happening and wanted to see what was going on. So I think they're paying attention. So, yeah. Killua is fine intrinsically, just a combination of cards causes problems. Yeah, I agree. I'm in the same boat with you, Roderick. I'd rather see if we can use a scalpel on Killua to bring her back in line than just like hammer her out of the environment, because I think she's fun. So I understand, Echo. You don't want Killua to exist. You don't want Ainz to exist. You don't want Ragnarok to exist. You got a problem with dragons and robots. That's what I've learned from this. Dinos, dragons, and robots. That's
nobody tell him that Typhon is a dinosaur, the dragon, and a machine.
Oh, nobody tell him. Nobody tell him. I think Echo also hates Typhon, so we're learning a lot about
Nobody tell him.
Yeah. Echo knows everything about what Force of Will shouldn't be.
Yeah, for sure. But that is it for tonight. This week is recovery week for sure for us. So you will not see any other videos from us this week.
I was surprised you were hopping in tonight.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about FoW Fest because I think I had a great time. It was a great time, and I just wanted people to see some cool stuff, and I wanted to show off the replicant stuff and give them a huge shout out. It was a ton of fun. You got to go get your pre-orders in for this next set because it's going to be sick. I'm really excited about it. Yeah, so until next time, don't forget, I'm Estina Gates. And this has been Demo73, joined as always by Paul Reisman.
It negates.
It does indeed negate. And Mike Rance.
Contrary to popular belief, MST does not negate. It only destroys the spell that it targets.
Class dismissed.
The spell does not actually